It now falls on me to introduce to you our next speaker, a very familiar face in the world of sport. Called the voice of Indian cricket, this commentator and columnist, besides playing frontman for ESPN Star cricket telecasts, is also helping firms develop business strategies. Ladies and gentlemen, please join your hands to welcome on stage Mr. Harsha Bhogle.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wow, this is quite a hall. I've been sitting here for a while and I've been seeing people talk about the future of technology and about such very serious issues that are going to matter to all of us. And guess what NASSCOM does after that? NASSCOM goes and invites a guy who just goes around the world watching cricket matches and tells people what happened to come and speak. How difficult is that? So I have nothing to say that is of immediate relevance to NASSCOM. I'm terrible with technology. I've just got onto a smartphone. I'm not yet on Facebook. I still need to ask people what to do. So I'll talk to you about what I know best since I've been invited here. It's an interesting topic this though. Excellence and ambition. A lot of us think we have ambition, and almost all of us are convinced that we practice excellence. What the definition of excellence is, I don't know. I guess all of us have our own definition of excellence. But in sport, which is the only thing I know. In sport, it's challenged all the time. So if you're not practicing excellence, you're sort of shown up very quickly. So over the years of watching sport, we've come across a few things that might determine whether or not you're practicing excellence. So I'll stick with one or two of those because this is really a very, very tiny session. And that timer started early, by the way. Anyway, but it's only a tiny session. So the first thing we ask ourselves is, when you're practicing excellence, what kind of goals are you setting for yourself? Are you setting yourself high performance goals? Are you telling yourself that every single time I go out, I will do the best I can and just let the result happen? Or are we telling ourselves, no, I will do only what it takes to achieve the result? In sport, you see both kinds of people. It's a tricky one. Technology is all about results, isn't it? And a lot of people who work in technology companies are obsessed with the results, because they don't get results, then there's other definition of attrition that kicks in, right? Positive attrition. If you don't achieve results, you're part of positive attrition. But we found in sport that the people who really practice excellence are the people who let the result happen. Very often, the fear or the anxiety of achieving the result actually comes in the way of getting it. And so a lot of people in sport tell you, listen, if the result is in your hands, it's okay, but very often the result is not in your hands. So there's this modern cliche about controlling the controllables. Only control what you can do. If you're in the 5th lane and there's a better runner in the 4th lane, you can't trip that runner, right? So you do whatever you can. So can you control what's in your hands? And what is in your hands? The only thing that's in your hand is excellence. And so in sport, a lot of people tell each other, listen, let's just practice excellence. I think it comes down very simply to what you're playing for. Are you playing for the challenge of playing? Or are you playing for the reward that comes with playing? It's a tricky question to ask today especially. Because there's a few people here and there's an auction going on somewhere. You'd have thought the 2G, 3G auction didn't mean anything because there's a cricket player auction going on as well. But are you playing for excellence? Are you playing for the challenge? Or are you playing for the reward? In essence, I think it boils down to one beautiful word and one ugly word that seem to coexist together in our lives. Excellence is a beautiful word, but it's got this country cousin called jugaad, which is a terrible, terrible, terrible word, and which is a sworn enemy of excellence. Because I will do whatever it takes to get there. And when you do whatever it takes to get there, sometimes you will do something that doesn't make you sleep well at night. Sometimes you will only do as much as is required, but you might be much better than that. We find a lot of people, if the result is all you want, you may be better than the result. And I think you'll find that people who practice excellence are not satisfied by the result. They do it because they enjoy themselves. Everything is a challenge. You take it as a challenge. That's why I ask challenge or reward. I mean, I've asked Rahul Dravid very often because he kept getting pushed into situations that other people didn't want to be in. Every time India needed an opening batsman away, guess where everybody was looking. If you didn't have a wicket-keeper who could bat, you had to find a batsman who kept wicket. So guess where you were looking at. And I asked him, didn't you ever think, why me every time? And he said something very interesting that I have tried to follow in my life in whatever little things. And he said, every time I was thrown a challenge like this, I said, let me take it, because otherwise I'll never know how good I am. And what is the worst thing that will happen? I'll fail, right? But is it criminal to fail? I think sometimes we fail because we are so afraid of failing. I don't think excellence worries about failing. Excellence goes out there and tries its best every time. I'll tell you a small little story that tells you what you're actually playing for. You know, a lot of us, unfortunately, we're a very limited sporting nation. Very limited sporting nation. We have very small ambitions. We only want to play cricket for India. That's all we want. Nowadays, you want to play only enough cricket for India to be on the second day of the IPL auction. The second day was a very good one today, by the way, for a lot of young kids, so it's not all that bad. But just imagine that you're playing your first game for India, and you know, always when you're playing your first game for India, you bat at number 6 and you feel that short leg. Both are seniority positions. They're not skill positions. And we get very excited when you're playing for India. You go out there, captain wins the toss, he's batting, and you're down at number 6, and you're in your track pants, and you're sitting and you're watching, and you just want to watch, soak it in a little bit. But you know what happens sometimes. The new ball swings around, it takes an edge, you're caught behind, you're 0 for 1, next batsman goes in, the bounce is a little more than you thought, batsman's playing here rather than here as you do in Rajkot, and the ball hits your hand and goes off, you're now 0 for 2. When you're 0 for 2, the bowlers bowl a yard quicker. So the next batsman in wants to be the non-striker's end. And the striker wants to be the non-striker's end as well. It's one of the truths of the game that when two people want to be at one end, there's a run out. Right? So, yeah, and that's why you get run-outs, right? So you're now 1 for 3, and the realization sinks in suddenly that you're next. And then you tell yourself, why me in this situation? So you quickly pull on your trousers, pull on your pads, put a bat together, realize that you hadn't tied your shoelaces properly for your shoes when you hadn't untied them well enough, and then you put them on and you're sitting there, and the next wicket falls, and you're 2 for 4 on a fiery track where the ball is seaming, swinging, bouncing, doing all un-Indian things. What are you telling yourself when you're going out to bat? Some people will say, why is this happening to me? Why me? I worked 10 years for this moment to come, and now why me? Upar wale mere saath kyun kar rahe ho aise? Or there'll be another set of people who will say, you know what, I might have waited 10 years for this moment. I might have had a career and never had an opportunity to walk into a situation like this. Thank you very much, batsman 1, 2, 3, 4, for allowing me to walk in a situation like this and proving myself. I'm not afraid of getting out. So what if I get out? It's already 2 for 4, right? But you're always looking at the plus. You're saying, if I can get 40 runs here in this difficult environment, then I've made it. And I found one other thing about people who practice excellence. They're always, not always, occasionally, they're searching for the difficult situation. Because when it's an easy situation, everyone scores runs, right? You're playing a home series in India, everyone gets 100 wickets. But the moment you're going overseas, or the moment you're playing in difficult conditions, as Warren Buffett said, when the tide goes out, you know who's been swimming naked. So from time to time, people who practice excellence want these difficult situations because they want to test themselves against those situations. So ask yourself, if you practice excellence, if you like the challenge, do you like 2 for 4? Or do you quietly say, I think the more experienced guy should go in next? Is a night watchman required? Are you game to go out as night watchman? Or are you in the shower? You know, when it's half an hour left, all the bowlers go into the shower, so they can't be sent out as night watchmen. What else happens if you take it as a challenge? I found that people who practice excellence, who look upon things as a challenge, are always trying to get better. It's something that drives them. They're telling themselves, can I get better today than I was yesterday? Can I get better tomorrow than I was today? And this is something that genuinely drives them. Sometimes, I remember doing commentary with Shane Warne once, and he was talking about a spinner who had made a very good debut, was rated very highly, and he just picked up the microphone and said, is this guy playing his 33rd test, or is he still playing his first test for the 33rd time? Has he improved? He's bowling exactly the same thing. Has he improved? Has he learned anything new? Every time he's forced into a new situation, he's going back to what he has already. And that is what happens when we are scared of failing. Every time there's a new situation, we attack it with what we know. And then we're pushed into another situation, and we again attack it with what we know, to the extent that after a while, that's all we ever know. And that's why they talk about the comfort zone. It's a cliche, isn't it? Everyone talks about the comfort zone. I think in modern corporate parlance, every 20 minutes you've got to talk about getting out of your comfort zone. So I've done it in 15. But why do you get out of your comfort zone? Because if you don't challenge yourself, somebody else will. It's a very cruel world. If you don't practice bouncers in the nets, the fast bowler is not going to say, poor guy, his mother's watching. He will give you the bouncer. Kevin Peterson, who's just finished with his international cricket, but went through a phase when he didn't like the short-pitched ball and went into the nets and for hours and hours and hours and hours practiced against the short-pitched ball coming up by his nose. What the West Indians call the perfume ball. You know what it is? When you smell the smell of leather going past your nose? The perfume ball, as they call it. Practice that. Tendulkar practiced leg spin bowling round the wicket because you want to vanquish every situation that comes up. You want to go to bed thinking, I did something better today than I did tomorrow. And when you improve, you're always trying to get better for tomorrow. One of the things we're seeing in sport, especially in the game that I cover for a living, is that the game is changing very, very fast. If you're ready today, you may not be ready tomorrow because tomorrow could be completely different from what it is today. So if you pride yourself on being able to bat for a day, because that's your skill, I will not lose my wicket. But today your skill lies in batting for half an hour. So being able to bat for a day is no longer relevant because people are going to say, how many do you score in your first 20 balls? Sorry, not sold. So if you're not ready for tomorrow, tomorrow can render you irrelevant. And you'll find that the people who are practicing excellence, and that's where ambition comes in as well. Can I be ready when tomorrow's challenges come in? And if you're not ready for tomorrow's challenges, life has a very nasty way of telling you that you've got to move on. Some very, very good players don't get contracts in the modern game because the skills that you possessed are now irrelevant. And the skills that are required, you still don't possess. And so that's why people keep getting out of comfort zones. And that I think is an indicator of ambition. But what can come in the way of ambition? Ambition's a good thing, right? What can come in the way of ambition? We see that in sport all the time. The first thing that comes in the way of ambition is laziness. There's overconfidence. When you become very, very good at what you do, then you start to think that that's all you need to do. And people start to turn up at matches. And that's something you can pick up straight away. Is someone just turning up, or is someone trying much harder? So the moment you just turn up, and then you win, you start to become aware that 60-70% is enough for me to win a game. And so without realizing it, you start giving only 60-70%, and then you realize after a while that 70% that you're giving is your new 100%. When you want to raise the bar, you can no longer do that. So laziness comes in the way. A lot of players just turn up after a while, and after a while, because we become very good at what we do, we don't want to do anything different, because we're afraid of failing, as I said a little while earlier. And in India, failure is something that we regard as death, isn't it? I think the moment we stop fearing failure, it happened to me in my life. I remember once making a colossal mistake while hosting a telecast. Just as we were going into the break, I'd made a huge mistake, and I'm sitting there, and the break is longer and longer and longer and longer than it seems because it's mulling in my head all the time. And I said to myself, what do I do? How do I get out of this mess? I just came out of that finally, and I said, sorry, gentlemen, I was wrong. This is what it was. Sorry, it's my mistake. And I found the moment I admitted to making a mistake, I was no longer afraid of making it, because what's the worst thing that will happen? You say sorry, right? And I found I was making fewer mistakes. So sometimes because we're afraid of making mistakes, we make many more of those. What else can happen? Can we just live in the past sometimes? You find a lot of people just living in the past, taking the easy option. The bigger challenge to ambition and excellence is focus. I know it sounds like motherhood statements, right? It sounds like you're taking an HR class. But it happens in sport all the time that after a while you lose your focus and stop doing what made you very good in the first place and start playing for the reward that you achieved because you were very good at what you did. And so you start to play for the contract. Or you start to play for a personal reward. You don't put in that little extra that makes you better. You'll find that the people who played over a period of time, you'll find that the Tendulkars, the Dravids, the Warnes, the Kumbles, across professions, you'll find across sport, a lot of people who did that, you'll find that one of the reasons they played for such a long time was that they never lost focus. And I think the world of sport is full of stories of bowlers who are texting wrong messages sometimes, of golfers who are no longer thinking about their golf, but who are worried about something else. See how long it took for them to come back. The moment your focus shifts, and once your focus shifts and you still win, that is the biggest danger. The moment you lose, if your focus shifts, you're okay because you'll come back. But if you keep winning, even when your focus is shifting, that is when it starts to become a disease, and then you've got a problem. There's one other problem, actually, which we see in sport, the problem to longevity, and that is becoming very good very early. If you become very good very early, then life comes easy to you sometimes. And the moment you have your first challenge, you've not tried hard enough. In our sport, we see examples every day of people who should have practiced excellence, who should have had great ambition, but who became very good very early. It can either be a challenge, or like with the Tendulkars, it can become an asset. So if some of us in this room have been very good early, some younger people around somewhere, hopefully somewhere, if you've become very good very early, look upon it as an asset, and if you work harder, then you become a Tendulkar. I mean, I remember one of Tendulkar's colleagues saying about him, he said, he had all this ability, extraordinary work ethic. Tendulkar's success, by the way, is a story of work ethic, not of talent. But extraordinary talent, extraordinary work ethic, but never lost his focus. Never worried about controversy, never worried about what's happening on DRS, never worried on Big Three and whether he's going to control world cricket. No. His focus was always on batting, always on can I get better tomorrow. How did Tendulkar get better after 2003? His best years ended in 2003 as an attacking player. He worked on his defense. How did Rahul Dravid get better as he went along? Because he knew he could no longer be the player he was. He said, it takes me longer to score the same number of runs now, so I will get fitter. So as he went into his 30s, he started training even more and more because he knew it's going to take him longer to achieve the same results, so he's got to be fitter. Tendulkar worked very hard on defense. His defense was much better at the end of his career because he could no longer play the shots that he was playing when he was younger. So even though in sport, physically it can come in the way of you doing very well, you accept the limitations and say, right, now with these limitations, what is the best I can do? So I just thought I'd share a couple of these stories on excellence with you, but if I had to summarize what I had to say literally in one line, it would be, what are you playing for? Are you playing for the challenge or are you playing for the reward? And I think the world has a very nice way, if you play for the challenge, of giving you the reward. I've known very few people who've taken the challenge and not got the reward. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a bit daunting when you see people standing at the back. It's a bit overwhelming when I've just been sitting here and I've been seeing masters of technology talking about the future of technology, and I was sitting there scratching my cheek and saying, what am I doing here? But thanks for being an audience. I've got 7 minutes and 26 seconds left. I was told I needed to leave that time for questions if there are any. How do we... there's a hand there.
Hi, Harsha. Thanks for the insightful session. I really like the analogy about that example that you talked about, the sixth batsman, right? Now, you said one key insight for me was that you should get out of your comfort zone and look for challenges, right?
It's easier said than done, though, I must admit.
Yes.
We all fall into it sometimes. It's easy to talk about, yeah.
So I would like to know your views on, because in this situation, a big thing that comes is the risk quotient, right? So I would like to know your views on where does one draw a line between a wild risk and a calculated risk? I
don't know. I didn't study too many textbooks. So I don't know. But I think it's something for each person to decide. When is it a risk for me and when is it not? But the danger with that kind of analysis, and you must do it, but the danger with that analysis is that before you go into the event, you tend to overstate the risk. And so you're always telling yourself, can I or can I not? We spend a lot of time debating on whether or not you can. And sometimes it's good if the option is taken away from you, and you're then forced to ask yourself how. So I don't have the option anymore. Right? I have to make 350 in 40 overs to win a game. Can I? I don't think so. But do I have the option anymore? No. So if you take the option away, you're forced to ask yourself, put the same situation in and say how. And the moment you say how, an answer emerges. Thanks.
Hello. Hi, Harsha. This way.
Yeah.
Hi. I guess in this room you're the only guy who must have seen so many matches at close quarters in most of India's,
100 yards away, but
absolutely.
I would have liked to be 22 yards away, but 100 yards away.
From all of us. So I want to take you back to one match and give us a little input of your analysis of character versus, individual. Sachin was about to come down, and instead of him, Ganguly came in by leaving him back in the dressing room. I think it's a Calcutta test, if I'm not wrong, way back with Australia. And Ganguly walked in ahead of Sachin because maybe he didn't want to send a night watchman and it was too soon to send a night watchman. Now, Sachin, everybody knows what Sachin is. And can you just define that character when it comes in of shielding someone? Or why somebody like a Sachin would be scared of walking out just about 45 minutes before close of play?
It's an interesting one whether he didn't want to walk out himself. I remember this was in Australia. We're all a little surprised that I think it might have been a game where Sachin was off the field for a while, if I remember right now, and therefore couldn't come into bat at his regular number. Because we did debate that issue a long time on whether Ganguly was shielding Tendulkar. I think it might have been the game where we discovered that because he'd been off the field for a while, he couldn't come in at his batting position, and so Ganguly had to come in. I think the actual story was that because Lakshman likes to have a shower before going out to bat, he was in the shower. But it does raise a very interesting issue. If you're the captain and your lead batsman isn't scoring a run and Tendulkar wasn't scoring a run in Australia, should you shield him and be seen to be sending a positive message? Or are you telling him, listen, the very fact that I think you need to be shielded means I don't think you're good enough anymore? And I think you'll find that in sport, one of the earliest lessons I learned in sport was that if you're doing badly, you go up the order, not down. Because if you go down the order, you get fewer balls. If you're good, you go up the order, you play a little bit more, and you get more time to play yourself in. So, I don't know if I answered that question, but if I remember the story right, I thought you were going to ask me about the 194 not-out declaration.
Mr. Bhogle, hi. Hello? Yeah. Hey, Mr. Bhogle,
Yeah.
hi. This is Vivek here. Thank you for such an inspiring talk. This was amazing. The question that I have is, now excellence can be inculcated in an individual, right? Few of us rise up and become that excellent leader or person. Is it possible to create a habit of excellence? And if so, how can that be done with all of us?
I think some cultures do that. If you're born in a culture where all you're saying is, can I get by tomorrow? Then you're never going to learn to practice excellence. But I think it's the air you breathe in the team you grow up in. And very often you'll find that a lot of great talent dies because the environment it is in doesn't practice excellence, is not ambitious enough. Or maybe if you're a part of a team that's losing all the time. You get in and your team is losing all the time, you're only thinking, how do I not lose? If you're part of a team that's winning all the time, you're going in thinking, how can I win? So to a large extent, your environment also determines whether you're able to practice excellence or no, but the truly best rise above that. The truly best rise above that. Look what a revolution's happening in Indian cricket. People who had no access to facilities are the people who have come in and taken the pants off the city boys, who had access to everything, which raises the other issue. Sometimes if you're given too many resources early in life, does it work in your favor or against? Does it dull you if you have too many resources early on? So should bright young MBAs be getting those salaries? Okay.
Yeah, here, Harsha.
Yeah,
Hello.
here is the next question.
Yeah, so your thoughts on timing your retirement with 200 and Mumbai as a choice.
With 200?
And Mumbai venue as a choice.
Well, if I had the option, I wouldn't want anything better, right? So, if I had the option...
In context of excellence and playing for the challenge and not for the reward.
So should he have done it in South Africa?
Your views on it.
I think when you've played 198 and you know you're going to finish in 200, everybody is human, right? You want to play your large game in front of your own people. So it's almost as if the game is now no longer about what you seek to do. But do listen to Tendulkar's last speech again. He says something very interesting. He says after he got out in the first innings for 74, he and his brother sat down and analyzed the dismissal just in case there was a second innings. So he was still thinking about it. I think it was a present that was given to him. Whether he should have had that option or no is a completely different story that is very dangerous to talk about. Yeah, I think there was somebody here, yeah? I think you need the implement.
Okay, winning team in the winning context, and then they get better, they get habitual to winning, and their attitude develops for excellence, right? If I say the same analogy for IT industry here in India, what happened to the Indian team in New Zealand? Such brilliant guys, all stars, when they went there in the international environment, they have beaten them up multiple times. So what's the lesson for the industry?
It's a peculiar thing about Indian sport because we always lose to reasons other than the opposition. I think we just got to say we're not good enough. I think India lost. In sport, it's very clear. If you lose a game, it's because either you're not good enough at all or you are not good enough on the day. But very few people seem willing to admit that you're not good enough. Our batsmen are not good enough to play in those situations, and because we don't like bowlers, we don't develop them. So I think when they went to New Zealand, they should have won the game based on their numbers, but they were not good enough in those conditions. Maybe you take the opposition lightly, I don't know. But to be honest, I thought it would be close. But you can only be called great if you do well at home and you do well away. So maybe we in the media assign greatness very quickly to people. But we are in a hype-driven world, right? We are in a world where at any given time 6 people have to be talking on the same program. We are in a world where the world wants to know everything every couple of minutes. So we hype things more than required.
Hello, sir.
We also pay our way into supplements and newspapers, yeah.
I'm a big fan of Saurav Ganguly, and I would like to know...
What took you so long to say that then?
And I would like to know any example of Saurav Ganguly into excellence, as we know that he is like a real fighter who has been...
I'll tell you something else about Saurav Ganguly's fans. Saurav Ganguly's fans don't know Saurav Ganguly at all. Because they're forever trying to ask people why was Saurav Ganguly very good when he was. Why would you want to ask me that Saurav Ganguly was good? Look at his record, look at what he's done. But everywhere I go, people ask me, give me an example of Saurav Ganguly being good. Just see his record.
Sir, I have read many things about Saurav Ganguly, but since you have been close with him, you have been in the commentary box, so any such thing which has not been written in paper and you know?
Not written in paper in front of all the cameras? Wow. No, I'll tell you a little later. I'll tell you a little later, that's okay. There's not more than a few cameras around. But I'm going to be meeting him later today, so I'll tell him that. But I'll tell you something else about. I think Saurav Ganguly is a fighter that all Saurav Ganguly's fans confuse with martyrdom. All Saurav Ganguly's fans are in a hurry to make him a martyr when he's a fighter. Yeah.
Harsha, as always, it's a pleasure to listen to you. You mentioned that the most dangerous impediment to excellence is even when you have lost focus, your team is winning.
Or when you're giving less than 100% and you're still winning.
Yeah, and that's probably because you're part of a strong team, you know, like Taylor's Australia or a Pontings or a Was Australia. So 2 questions. You know, one, how do you motivate yourself when you're part of a very strong team? And secondly, do you think excellence is sustained more easily when you're part of a relatively weaker team?
It's easier because when you're winning, everyone's helping each other. When you're losing, more fundamental questions get asked about each other. But I think one of the reasons the Australian team was good for that long, one of the reasons the West Indies team was good for that long, was they analyzed winning and they knew why they're winning, and they had systems within to prevent them from just turning up. There was a lot of competition, and as the Australians say, they always practiced like they were number 2. They kept their interest alive in practicing. So every time they went to train, they would train differently. Because you know you're going to win with 70%. But this happens very often, you know, you win with 70%, and we have this terrible saying in cricket, never change a winning team. Anyone heard that? It's the most ghastly line I've ever heard in sport, never change a winning team. When you don't change a winning team, it's because you don't know why you won. And so you deliver 70%, 2 or 3 are failing, but you're still winning, and you don't change, and you don't change, and you don't change. That's when you get all the deadwood appearing, and one morning you lose, and you say, hang on, I was not supposed to lose, but you had not seen the indicators coming in when you were building up deadwood all along. In my city where I grew up in, we call it Uppar Sherwani, Andar Pareshani. When you wear the Sherwani on top, you have no idea what's beneath. I think that's what happens to great teams that don't analyze winning. If you analyze winning, then you know whether you're giving 100% or no, but no one analyzes winning. We only analyze defeats. So I think in teams that are winning all the time, the coaches and the captains take extra care to ensure that people are on their feet all the time by offering them newer challenges all the time. Change the batting order maybe, or throw a different challenge sometimes, but ensure that they are always being challenged. Yeah.
Hi Harsha, going little back
you got up very quickly, yeah? Huh?
Yeah, into your own life.
My own life?
Yeah, one episode in that. You left, you could have done a very good corporate career. You left that.
I don't know about that, but
well, going by your academic credentials. And then you left that to go into cricket commentating at a time when it was not that as glamorous as it is now. Nowadays kids aspire to be Harsha Bhogles. But at that point of time, was that a calculated risk, or was that, that if I fail in that and it does not take, I can anyway come back to the corporate?
A lot of people ask me this calculated risk. How, if you don't mind me asking you, how old were you and what was your first salary check?
How old I am now?
Or what was your first salary check? That'll give an idea of how old you are anyway. No, in that lies the answer to what I'm going to tell you.
Okay. And no,
Show me a number that's plausible.
No, it's the real answer. I was 24 years old when I got the first salary.
And the check was?
That I will tell you in private.
Okay. I was 24 too, and my starting salary was 1,900 rupees a month out of IIM Ahmedabad. So what risk are you taking?
Okay.
So there was no risk. No, I think there's a couple of things. One is marry a girl who's working. Number two is marry a girl who's got a flat with a gas connection and a telephone and just take your bag and walk in. And number three is don't fall in love with money. If you don't fall in love with money, then there's not much to lose. What is the thing that you lose? You lose money, right? So if you're not worried about losing money, then what are you losing? Anyway, I'm getting philosophical. We'll talk about it afterwards.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah? Okay. Thanks. Sorry, in the middle of this rather serious technology gathering, it became a little lighter. Thanks.
Thank you so much,
you.
Mr. Bhogle, for a riveting talk on excellence in ambition.